Derek, typically we would play It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year for this particular show. That's because right. This is Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network, and it is the March Madness edition. Brackets are out. Derek, you have your Final Four already picked, right?
You just got sued. You got us sued.
What's
you
that?
got sued. I got sued. The show got sued. You
Why?
said March Madness.
Are we not supposed to say that?
I think you're not supposed to put it in print. I think you're allowed to say it.
They have signs on every interstate in the state of Indiana right now with
Jake, the NCAA, did you see this story? I don't know if you guys saw this at home. They're going after a urologist in Virginia for putting a promotion together that was vasectomy madness because technically they say, hey, you put madness in this. This is ours. You can't have
What about Our House? Did you like that song from Our House? Our House in the middle of our street. That's Madness. That's the name of the band. Did they get sued?
I thought that was Talking Heads.
No, it's
Our House?
Yes, Our House is Madness.
Our House.
In the middle of our street. Our house. That was where we used to meet.
Well,
Father gets up late for work. Yes, that's
we're
Madness.
off to a great start.
At any rate, my name is Jake
Great
Query.
start.
This is Derek Schultz. You are watching Query and Schultz here on the ISC Sports Network. Thank you, as always, to WGU Indiana, the Shop Indy, Love Heating and Cooling, as well as the American Dairy Association of Indiana. I think that's everybody, right? And WGU
so.
Indiana.
Yep, good job.
Did I say WGU already?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get right to it, Derek. The tournament bracket is out, and look, Final Four picks and everything else. I mean, we'll do that at some point today. But the big story here is the fact of to a great extent, who's not here. When the bracket pairings came out, the two things that jumped out to me, number one, the Blue Bloods. And I know that nationally speaking, Indiana might not be considered the same blue blood as a Kentucky or a Duke or a Louisville, but they are locally. First time since 1965 you're missing U of L, UK, Duke, Indiana.
Yeah.
None of those four. But also, how about the fact that if you're talking about Indiana, and I want to talk about Purdue and the fact that they're a 4 seed and they've had a great year, and kudos to the Boilers, but from Indiana's standpoint, if you're an Indiana basketball fan, you're watching right now a tournament without your team in it, Indiana, whatever. You're watching Kelvin Sampson come and play Cleveland State, who was the first team to knock Indiana out in the first round of the tournament in 1986, at Assembly Hall. And you're watching the possibility of Gonzaga tying 1976 Indiana with an undefeated season.
Yeah, it's no good all the way around. There's really no way to paint this as a positive thing for Indiana fans for sure. But you know what's also interesting, Jake, about the fact that Louisville, IU, UK, and Duke aren't in it? Not only that, Kansas is a 3 and Carolina's an 8.
Right.
You know, all those teams, I mean, Kansas being a 3, let's go back like the last 20, 30 years. How many times has Kansas not been on the 1 or 2 line?
Right.
Like probably a small handful of times. I should have looked that up before the show, I guess, today. But, you know, a real, I think, microcosm
what is UCLA?
Of the they're in the play-in game with
so
Michigan State. Kind of a real microcosm of the topsy-turvy nature of this season where you had Alabama and LSU playing a conference basketball championship game. It's just been kind of a strange year.
There are several things that factor in, I think, to this level of the playing field, to use your term. Number one, the one-and-done era. You know, we've talked about the fact, Eric, that when it comes to the one-and-dones and loading up a recruiting class with 5-star blue-chip guys, as you've seen in Kentucky, some years they mesh together and they play really well together and you are dynamite. And other years you have great players, but they just don't really mold, and you don't know until like halfway through. And I think John Calipari is a brilliant coach at molding personalities and players and everything else. But sometimes you just get a group, and by December you can say, yeah, these guys are all going to be good NBA players, but they're not really meshing in the college level. We'll start over again next year. And sometimes you need 4-year players to complement, as we saw with the Anthony Davis group, and you have a couple of seniors in there to mix it in and give some stability, and you're dynamite. Oftentimes with the Blue Bloods, if you're too heavy laden with talented freshmen that aren't molding and meshing, you start over a year later. In addition to that, this year has just been so weird because you don't have home court advantages. You don't have raucous crowds to give you, 50% of your wins are almost automatic. 50% of your games, there are a number of things that factor into it.
Yeah, for sure. With the one-and-done thing, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think more often than not, years like this one for Kentucky and for Duke are clearly the exception more than the rule.
Of course.
I mean, people point to the Nerlens Noel team coming off that 2012 team that
Kentucky's
that
missed 3 tournaments in 12 years.
Yeah, so
and the years that they didn't miss it, they're making deep runs.
Yeah, so I still think that if you can get those guys, you don't say no to those guys. So I'm not going to take this as necessarily like an indictment on the one and done culture, but I think what you just pointed to, home court, plays a really huge role in this whole thing, and it was just different. We spent the summer wondering if there was even going to be a season, and that's not to say that guys didn't stay in shape and guys stayed ready, but this whole year, Jake, has been so unprecedented that I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that we've had an unprecedented mediocrity from so many of college basketball's blue bloods.
UC Santa Barbara that's in it, aren't they the Gauchos?
Yeah, they are.
They're the Gauchos, right?
I believe their coach is an Indiana grad.
That's correct. He was an IU manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
4 years behind me. What is a Gaucho?
I think it's just a Spanish term for like a cowboy, right? Isn't it?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
But is that going to be canceled eventually? It sounds. I don't know why.
No, because I think gaucho is the actual Spanish translation of the word cowboy.
Yeah, but that's like it. What do people say? That's like cultural appropriation.
Well, some people are saying that do we get rid of Oklahoma State, Dallas? Like, is Cowboys now not? Is that an offensive term? So do we need to get rid of Cowboys?
How is Cowboys offensive?
I have no idea, but
okay,
people are wondering that.
Okay. The little gaucho guy, I like him though.
Internet.
He wears the hat, right?
Yeah.
He wears a big sombrero.
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
Which maybe that you would point to.
Again,
yeah.
That's what I'm talking
Santa
about.
Santa Barbara, man. It's beautiful.
Did you watch St. Bonaventure and
the
VCU
Bonnies
yesterday?
Yeah, we were actually at a Mexican restaurant, and they had that game on in the background. So watched a little bit of that. Had some tacos and watched.
Did they have any murals?
The A10 championship.
Did they have any gaucho murals?
No, just very bright colors, which I like. That's actually one of the appeals.
Was your dad with you at the Mexican restaurant?
No, thank God.
What? What's wrong with?
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Your dad likes Mexican restaurants, right?
Yeah, I love my dad, and he loved a place called Senor Pancho's, which he used to call Pancho Villas for some reason.
Okay.
And so for every time my dad got to pick where we were going to go, we would drive like 4 towns over and go to Senor Pancho's. And he never had Dos Equis in the house, but he'd always ask for a Dos Equis at the restaurant and quesadillas and things like that,
right.
Where, he was trying to be part of the culture, and we'd just be like, Dad, this is embarrassing. Just let us order for you. How about that?
Did you, in looking over the bracket, one of the teams that I think is the most polished? Colgate.
Okay.
What?
Is this what we're going to do?
I'm just saying.
I was going to say, as a disclaimer for this year, this is the least amount of college basketball I have ever watched.
I would agree with that.
I
think most people feel that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird when you see some teams are – who is it I saw is 16-1. I'm like, they played 17 games?
Well, Colgate is a team that is up there, right? Aren't they?
They're
15-1?
14-1.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, they've barely played any games, but they've barely lost.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive. But a lot of these teams exclusively played in their league, where they'd play just basically home and homes with all of these teams. But, I had a lot of – not just the pandemic. I just had a lot of life stuff. I took on a new job, and there was a lot of stuff that happened during the course of the season where my focus was elsewhere.
Honestly, for me, I watched fewer games partially because without a crowd there, it just was flat.
It adds so much. But you know what? I really did enjoy particularly the conference tournament games with no crowd because you could really kind of hear the emotion of the – like Notre Dame hit a buzzer beater in their game, and you could hear the guys celebrating, like, loudly.
Right.
And that was kind of cool because it was sort of eerie and surreal. You're in this cavernous building with no people except media and security, and these guys are on the floor celebrating. You can hear every word.
With Colgate, for example, 14-1, right? Mm-hmm. You just don't get a chance to really do a good exam. You can't do like a complete floss and rinse on who they are.
The most famous, at least basketball, I think,
Adana Foyle.
Colgate, yeah, who was a terrible NBA player.
He was not terrible.
He made like $50 million because he was big.
Right.
But
he wasn't terrible.
He was a top 10 pick, if I remember.
Who was better, Adana Foyle or Yankadare?
Well, Foyle had more longevity. Poor Yinkadare, God rest his soul, had a heart condition, didn't he?
I think he
believe.
Did pass away.
Yeah. But I remember that GW team. Did they go to the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight?
They made a run. I think
it was the Sweet 16 that
they
went
to. Okay, which leads to this question: Who then is this year's deep run Cinderella team that people are like. I mean, there's always that team, right? Yeah. That people fall in love with, and that's what makes the NCAA tournament great.
You know who?
By the way, I look washed out again. Is it the lighting? Is it the lighting?
You're good.
No, I think it's the lighting.
You know who I think can do it again? And I say again because we
Can we turn down the iris on the cameras to give us a little more?
You're fine.
But it's a glow. Like we look like light bulbs, Derek. We need powder.
I look great.
No,
I look really good.
Don't kid yourself.
Yeah, I don't think you're washed out
I
at all.
noticed your bald spot behind your head is shrinking a little bit, and there's less. Are you doing something there?
I told you that in confidence before the show.
You didn't tell me anything.
And yes, I did.
Which was what?
The fact that you're bringing this up now makes me very angry. Because I even said, please don't tell anybody, but I may or may not have made a purchase a couple of months ago because I felt like I was thinning out a little bit on top.
Just different shampoo?
Keeps? No, it's actually amoxicillin or whatever that's. The main ingredient is in Rogaine.
Like a lotion?
Yeah, I massage it into my scalp. It's not a lotion. It's like a solution. Massage it in my scalp in the morning and then at night, and I religiously do it. And
what about it? Are you doing it down here?
It has worked out. Huh?
Are you doing it in here?
No, that's all natural, baby. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I don't need any. If anything, I need hair ungrowth.
Things are starting to move south for you.
No, it's not that.
Welcome to your late 30s.
No, it's not that.
40s.
I mean, I'm in the physical prime of my life, so I'm good.
Okay. Who is this year's?
I'll
Chattanooga.
This is
Davidson.
This is almost going to sound like a cop-out because
George
they just
Mason.
did it. But a team that's really good that I thought was grossly underseeded. They're top 10 in the net, and they're top 10 in KenPom as well, and they've been really good.
Okay. Are they at a Power 5 conference?
No.
Okay. I don't know.
I think Loyola, again. Loyola's in the 8-9 game.
Now, I went to a Loyola-Richmond game, strangely enough, in December, played in the convention center. It was a last-minute makeshift game. And I thought Richmond looked good against them, and Loyola, it was a close game, and then Loyola kind of got hot in terms of their outside shooting and pulled away. That's the only time I've really seen Loyola. And they were impressive, but, they obviously – I mean, they're in a good league, Derek.
Yeah.
They're in a good league.
Well, it ended up being a two-bid league because Drake ended up getting into the first 4 games, so the Valley actually sent 2 teams. But what I worry about with Loyola, that Illinois region is just brutal.
Yeah.
I think any one of those teams, another team that I think is a dark horse for the Final Four who's playing really good ball, and we met their coach. Actually, I don't think you were with me. Were you with me when we had Mike Boynton on from Oklahoma State?
No.
He had just taken that job because Brad Underwood, who we also had on, had left and created that vacancy for the Illinois job. And that Oklahoma State team, I think, is really good. And they're a 4 seed, and I think they can go to the Final Four, too.
I'll tell you who I think is really good. I think Illinois is really good. And I think Illinois, when you have teams that make a deep run in a conference tournament like Illinois and Ohio State did, a lot of people think that, well, does that take wind out of your sails? I think Illinois, one of 2 things is going to happen. Illinois is either going to be an upset special and get knocked out in the second round, or they're going to go to the Final Four. I don't see them.
If they get knocked out in the second round, it will probably be Loyola, right? That's their 8-9 game team. I like the fact that they did the tournament this year on the S curve, which just means that the worst 2 goes to the best 1, right? Instead of worrying about geography because everything's in Indiana, so there's no advantage for anybody, which I actually kind of like. But unfortunately, it just seemed to create a really, really, and I guess they've earned it because they're that good, a really, really easy region for Gonzaga, including an Iowa team who they just beat.
I would,
I
would agree with you when you look at it and I go, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, Gonzaga, because that's what you always do. You look at the 1, then you say, well, who's the 2 in their region? Who got the toughest 2? Like Ohio State is really good. Ohio State has really good guards. And Ohio State, this is the key for Ohio State. Ohio State has not 1 but 2, Derek, on-the-floor guys late in games that shoot better than 90% from the free throw line. That's huge in late tournament games. Ohio State, based on their guard play, can go really deep. But Iowa, to me, and I know that Iowa, when they're playing their best, is really good. And they kind of resemble Gonzaga a little bit because they have multiple bigs that can shoot at a good percentage. But I still think that for Gonzaga, you look at it, if you're looking at the 2s and you go, okay, we're pretty happy with getting Iowa.
Yeah, and Iowa's playing really good basketball. They completely turned it around after.
Did you want the powder?
No, I'm good.
We
thought that they were going to fade after that second loss to Indiana, and they never really faded. In fact, they got hot right after that until losing in the Big Ten tournament. But I'm really interested to see what the Big Ten does, Jake, because you've got 4 teams on the top 2 lines, and it's rare that you have that happen. And then I think Purdue is a team that, at the very least, can get to the second weekend again. Ironically, they got put in the same pod as Villanova, who they absolutely ragdolled in that second-round game.
Ragdolled. I heard that term used yesterday by somebody, and
Do you remember that game?
I got a little powder on. Does that look any better?
Nobody seems to remember that game.
Yeah, that was Carson Edwards when he first turned,
Yeah, well, I mean, he had a big game in every game,
right?
Especially
but I mean,
against Villanova. I think he might have had 38 or 39 points in
it. Doesn't that look bright up there?
They completely disemboweled Villanova in that game. I think they were up 35 at some point. I said disemboweled.
You said bold.
Disemboweled, I said.
No, I think you
yeah,
I
mean, we'll have Jordan get it in post, but I said disemboweled. Yes, I know what that means. They removed their innards. That's what Purdue did to they ripped out their internal organs and intestinal
that was
and all of that.
That game when Purdue and Villanova played was when Carson Edwards, who had been obviously a lightning in a bottle player, but he hit what in that game? 9 threes, 8 or 9 threes?
Yeah, something like that.
And he never turned it off.
It's hard to remember which game was which because it was an historic individual run.
It was.
For Edwards and just Purdue in general, but it feels like because that was the last tournament that was played, it feels like that was 20 years ago. Like that's the most recent NCAA tournament. You remember we were sitting in Louisville for that game against Tennessee. We did the show from there, and that feels we've gotten fired since then. It's just weird. It's weird to think about how long ago in life that actually was, even though it's only been technically 2 years.
The tournament is so great because it's spring, the weather's turning. There's just so much fun that goes into it, and I know this year's going to be different. But when we come back, a lot to get to today. I mean, we've got obviously our American Dairy Association of Indiana Winners Drink Milk to get to. We have our Love That Play from the great guys at Love Heating and Air and gals at Love Heating and Cooling. We have obviously Buy It or Bull Schultz with the shop from Indianapolis, and we have something coming up on Friday that I want you to talk about. But it's just such a great time, Derek. I want to talk about like memories that jump out at you about the tournament and what makes the tournament special for you when we come back. I want to do that. But before we do that, I want you to tell me what's taking place on Friday.
Friday is our first live remote as part of ISC Sports Network.
Okay.
We're really excited about that. Indy Card Exchange up on 96th Street over by the Sam's Club and that World Sushi Buffet and Menards's.
Can I bring my cards?
Yes, of course you can, but you kind of strike me as one of those people that don't really know about it, so you're going to have like a bunch of like 1987 Topps cards that are worth like 50 cents.
Did you see the Darren Ravel tweet?
Because I actually know about the hobby a little bit.
Did you see the Darren Ravel tweet?
I did not.
Before you sound like Darren Ravel here?
No.
Darren Ravel, who is the noted is he still with ESPN, or did he go somewhere else now?
He's with ESPN. Yeah.
Darren Ravel, who
is the worst.
But how would you describe him?
I would describe him as the worst.
He's a sports business, but for people that are not familiar.
Yes, he's like a sports business guy.
Correct. He
who has no personality whatsoever.
So someone sent a tweet, just an average Joe, sent a tweet with a picture of like a closet full of stacks and boxes of baseball cards, Donruss and Topps and whatever else. You couldn't see what was inside the boxes, but some of them were full sets and other such things. And said, it's taken a few weeks to finally like emotionally get there, but I don't even know where to begin in starting to go through my dad's collections. And they tagged Darren Ravel. Tagged, for those that are unfamiliar, meaning attached him or brought it to his attention.
So he'd see the tweet.
Darren Ravel replied to it and just put, pretty much all junk.
Oh, God.
That's all he said.
It's your dead father's entire collection, which obviously you kept in a closet because you couldn't bring yourself to part with it.
So people were like, hey, man,
he's the worst, Jake.
This is pretty insensitive. And so he replied and said, why, I'm just saying it has no monetary value. And I replied to it and said, the fact that you think this is all about monetary value right there speaks a lot. And he replied to me, well, he tagged me so that I could estimate it for him. And I'm like, I don't think he tagged you that at all. He probably just thought you would have an interest in it.
It's 2021 and not 3021. So 3021, these will probably be more common. But I'm not completely convinced that Darren Ravel isn't some sort of like futuristic robot that can't feel like normal human emotions. Like, no, you're right that no person possible would react that way. And not only that, dig in. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Darren Ravel's problem is that anytime that he's had a dumb tweet like that, and he's had a lot of them, is like he's almost incredulous with the response. And it's like, dude, maybe if people always respond this way, don't you think that maybe it's you and not everybody else?
Right. Yeah.
I
So
don't
anyway,
want to launch into a Darren Ravel
so Friday
rant, but
we're
he
going
is
to
the
be
worst.
there. Now, take me through what's
4
going
to
to be
6
taking
p.m.
place. Okay.
So they've got TVs in there. It's actually there's a lot of space. It's a converted restaurant, and they're relatively new tenants of that place. IndyCar used to be in, I think the original store was in Castleton, and then moved over to this place on 96th Street, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Andy's the owner there, really cool guy. His collection is, unbelievable, as you have to have an unbelievable collection to have a card shop. But I'm looking forward to going down memory lane because when I got out of the business,
I loved them.
I really felt
Business?
like it kind of, it's a business. It
No,
kind of,
but you were in the business?
I was in the business, yes. I bought and sold
Okay.
online.
Right.
Stefan Sports Cards. I had a fake alias. I used my parents' P.O. box.
Fake alias redundant, by the way.
Okay, I had an alias.
All right.
And bought and sold via dial-up AOL internet on the grandstand message boards. And I had to threaten that kid from New Jersey one time because he took my $25. And it was a lot of fun, but around the turn of the century, it really crashed, but now it's kind of rebuilt
it's
again, and
come back, right?
people are really back into it again and collecting again, and
Now,
it's not just a bunch of dealers.
I want to make sure that people know this as well, Derek, and I want to point this out. We are aware of the fact that we're doing our first remote here coming off of, and I'm hoping on Thursday that I'm going to get the vaccine, but that remains to be seen. But coming off of towards the end of the pandemic, but we're still in it, so we want to make sure we're responsible here, right?
That's right, yeah. So they have a capacity of about 40 or 50, and we're going to be behind, actually. I usually request this for most remotes, but since we're in a pandemic, it works. We're going to be behind a velvet rope. So we'll be roped off from the general public. So the public figures will be...
Like the remote we did from the NCAA tournament when Purdue was in Louisville.
That's right. Well, we were in a glass box at a bar, which smelled like stale beer. But yes, kind of the same thing.
We're still not sure what happened there,
the
right?
stale beer smell. But no, all kidding aside, we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and safe in coming out. And if you don't feel comfortable coming out, that's fine too, because we're going to be able to be seen live on Comcast. Also, streaming live, obviously, iscsportsnetwork.com, our social page, Facebook, Query and Schultz, Twitter, ISC, Facebook, ISC, and everywhere else where you're used to watching us.
Okay, when we come back, tournament memories and what makes the month of March so special, because the sports calendar year, each month has something different that makes it special, but there are few things more special perhaps than the month of March, especially for people here in Central Indiana. We'll get to that and more as Query and Schultz rolls on here on the ISC Sports Network.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
You can't get enough of them.
You can't get enough of us. Good one, J-Man.
This is the worst scandal. This might
This
even
is
be...
worse than steroid. Not so fast.
Are you going to watch the XFL?
I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
You want to go through and pick some games?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Oh, my God.
We are ripping fast today.
How hard can it be, right?
These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
Welcome back. It's Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network alongside Jay Query. I'm Derek Schultz. Thanks so much for joining us. The bracket is set. The venues are set. Assembly Hall State Fairgrounds, Indiana Farmers Coliseum.
That's right.
Sorry, I was about to call it without the sponsor. They get mad about that. Assembly Hall, Mackey Arena.
Simon Scott Assembly Hall, Derek.
Nah, sounds stupid. Bankers Life Fieldhouse. What am I missing? Anything?
Oh, big one.
Lucas Oil Stadium.
Correct.
That's all 5.
Did you mention
right?
Hinkle?
Oh no, and Hinkle. Sorry, forgot about Hinkle. I guess I should have just had a list in front of me there.
Hi, I'm Derek Schultz. I'm going to list the venues of the NCAA tournament, but I'm going to neglect to mention where the Final Four is or the most historic venue of all of them. Back to you.
You're lucky we're best friends because technically that's a violation of my trademark.
What's that?
You just identified yourself as Derek Schultz.
Believe you me, that's one of the few times it's going to happen.
Well, I can call Josh and make sure it never happens again. He's my lawyer.
Okay.
Just saying.
I recommended him.
So what makes March special for you?
You know, when I was a kid, 2 things would happen in the month of March. The beginning of the month, we would have our annual roller skating party for school.
God, you are old.
It was awesome. It was awesome. We'd go moonlighting, which is where you asked like the girl you had a crush on to. You wouldn't know that part. Some people call it there are different names, different parts of the country, but it was moonlighting for me. And I remember in 4th grade, Ann Sprague moonlighted with me. It was quite the thrill. So the roller skating parties at USA Skate, East or West, always a highlight. But late in the year, Derek, I remember. I mean, so many members. I remember when Indiana defeated Carolina. Well, I mean, I remember Indiana winning it all in '81. I grew up an Indiana fan. Open disclaimer.
So you were what, 10 or 9 or 10 when Indiana?
I was about to turn 9 when they won it in '81.
You don't remember '76 though, right?
I don't remember '76. I remember, I was like the '80 team, '81, '83 when they were ranked number 1 and Kitchell had back problems, so many different teams and so many different years in the NCAA tournament. And look, I've got a lot of respect. I love Gene Cady. The Purdue-Indiana rivalry was so great back then, Notre Dame as well, that you definitely knew what those teams were doing as well and followed it. But open disclaimer, when I think of my childhood memories of the tournament, it surrounds around Indiana. No question about it. I remember them bringing televisions in to class to watch if Indiana or Purdue played in the early games. We would watch it at school, which is mind-blowing. We watched Cleveland State beat Indiana in class. In my 7th grade, Rick Webb's 7th grade science class, he brought a TV in and we watched Cleveland State. And it was like halftime when we went home. And we're like, there's no way they're going to lose this game, right? And they lost to Cleveland State. But the biggest thing I remember is when I was a kid, total different sidebar, but I had juvenile epilepsy. And so I would have to have sleep-induced EEG tests done like twice a year. And my mom would schedule them. I guess this is the adolescent version of the vasectomies. My mom would schedule them around the NCAA tournament because I would have to stay up all night because it was a sleep-induced test. So I'd have to stay up all night the night before, and my mom would schedule it on the opening night of the NCAA tournament. Because games would go until like
all the West Coast games,
and then
which usually was Indiana.
Yeah,
honestly,
you're right. And she would tape the early games, and I would watch those because I had to be up till 5 or 6 in the morning. And my mom, to this day, that's what we think about with the NCAA tournament. But I think about the teams, Cinderella teams, Richmond that made runs, and Cleveland State, for that matter, that made a run, and Peanut Butter and Jelly at South Alabama. And there were so many great moments. But this is where schools get on the map, players get on the map, and then in the end, usually the cream rises to the top.
I'm about 10 years younger than you, but I remember I had a Walkman radio. So cassette player and also AM, FM
Did you
radio.
have the Sony Sports?
And no, I just had the black model, not the yellow, the bright yellow one. And I remember Dr. McVeigh's science class in 9th grade. So the 98 tournament, Valpo had the early game.
Yeah.
And I was listening to it. He was last period, and I was listening to it. And then I was like, I wonder if I can get home for the finish. And this is before I had my driver's license, right? I was 15. And I ran off the school bus right in time when they were setting up the last play. And it was called Hoosier. Didn't they call it Hoosier? Or Pacer, that's right. Yes, Pacer. I knew there was an Indiana tie there. So I ran off the bus to watch Bryce Drew's shot to sink Ole Miss. You think about that. You think about going into the audio-visual room to watch some of the earlier games because, we didn't have – it was the infancy of the internet, so you had to be on an actual computer in order to get any of those score updates. And I would imagine – the computer lab was always full, on Thursday and Friday.
We'll see plenty of Bryce Drew's shot here over the next couple of weeks because Bryce Drew's
He's back
in
with
the
Grand
tournament.
Canyon, yeah. And you do wonder, and not to sidebar here, but you do wonder if Indiana would give him a call just to talk to him because – He had a great run at Valpo. Obviously, he's had success at Grand Canyon, and he never really had a chance at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was a politics decision. They had changed athletic directors. Really, they had kind of decided to nuke their athletic program and decided to make a change there way too early.
And Jerry Stackhouse, is he still at Vanderbilt?
I think so, yeah.
Vanderbilt.
They've not had success.
I don't see Vanderbilt in the tournament.
No,
really.
they were winless under Bryce Drew. They had they went 0 for the SEC season a couple of years ago, and I think that's what they felt like justified.
There
his ouster.
are 5 players. Speaking of, you got the Drew brothers.
Yep.
Scott Drew, Baylor, Bryce Drew. But there are 5 players on Drake's roster from Indiana.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
There are, I believe, 30 schools. I could be wrong on the number that have an Indiana kid on the roster, but Drake has 5 of them.
Well, that's kind of the cool thing about this too, is that you have all kinds of, obviously people know Dane Fife is an assistant at Michigan State, but Michael Lewis being an assistant at UCLA, and now they match up together. 2 guys that overlapped on Bob Knight's last teams, and both were played in that backcourt. So kind of cool. I love the. I don't think that the committee intentionally does this. But what I like to think is that the committee has a sense of humor. So the fact that Kelvin Sampson's going back to Assembly Hall, to me, is just them being fun with it. And it should be fun. It's sports, right? So I have no problem with it. I kind of like it.
Except for that the NCAA that banished that he needed to have a show clause to get back in coaching, and now they're having fun with him.
Well, that's kind of the most frustrating thing about where Indiana is that they just need to find the guy that's going to turn it around. And they have that guy. The problem is that person under the old NCAA laws, you had to get rid of him.
Who was
I mean, Kelvin Sampson, kind of like Pitino, nobody ever has questioned that Kelvin Sampson or Rick Pitino can coach.
Right.
No one has ever questioned that. It's all the other stuff that you question.
Who was your favorite run? When you think about tournament runs, the one that is nostalgic for you, because I think we all have
the
that.
first one that really stuck with me because it was such a huge deal was UConn's 1990 run nearly to the Final Four. The Tate George shot to beat Clemson. That was crazy. I mean, everyone in the state watched the Clemson game and the Duke game. And I remember I would assume that was kind of UConn and
coming out party.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember leaving a rec basketball game at Jane Ryan Elementary School. I was 7. And my dad was listening to the game on the radio, and he came in and gave the score update. Hey, UConn lost. Christian Leitner hit the shot, and people were crying. I wasn't, because I wasn't really emotionally we were IU fans because my parents were IU alums, but all my friends were UConn fans because they were the big pro team. But the second one that really kind of stuck with me, and this is another New England reference, and the team that actually knocked out that Valpo team was URI. They went all the way to the Elite Eight. Yeah.
Now they call it UR High there, right?
In some circles, yes. That has been – it's known as the East Coast kind of party. It's the Arizona State of the Northeast.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Rhode Island, they knocked out Kansas as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that was Lamar Odom's team. Coutinho Mobley?
It was the year before Lamar Odom. It was Coutinho Mobley. Yes.
Right.
But Odom's team actually won the A-10 tournament and went back to the NCAAs.
Who was Coutinho Mobley, and they had another guard, didn't they?
Tyson Wheeler?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good team.
He's a good player, too.
I remember vividly Loyola Marymount's 1990 team. You've heard me reference
that's
that before.
An iconic one.
I mean, that was just magical.
Yeah, Bo Kimball, and they'd score 155 points a game. I mean, it was
unbelievable. Yeah. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, but so many of those. I mean, we could sit here all day. We could do a 8-hour show on why the NCAA tournament is special.
Is in this year's team or this year's bracket, is Alabama for real?
You know what? Again,
with the head coach that a lot of people are going to start talking about.
Yeah. Again, disclaimer. Outside of their game against LSU, that was the first time I had watched Alabama all year. So I'm not really in authority to say. I do have a buddy that is a UA grad that is a huge Alabama all sports, especially football, of course, but all sports. And he tweets about them, so I get a little bit of just from osmosis about that
Your
team.
Your buddy tweets Alabama sports stuff.
I just don't. Yeah.
Did he go? Is he from Connecticut?
No, it's from Louisiana.
How did you become buddies with the guy from Louisiana?
He used to write for a Cubs site that covered their the Iowa and not Chattanooga, whatever their team is, Tennessee
Altman?
Smokies or whatever. No, different guy.
But same thing.
Yeah, same sort of a thing. And we linked up when I first started at ESPN 950, and I'd have him on to talk Cubs, and we just kind of remained friends. We're around the same age, and yeah. I've only actually met him once in person, and it was like 12 years ago.
The team that I think – there are 2 teams that every year I pick 2 teams in the tournament, and I say, you know what, these are my deep-run teams. Now, if it's a 3 or a 4 seed, you can't really call them a Cinderella run, right? But
4 seed, yeah. 3 not so much, I guess.
Florida State. Don't sleep on Florida
I
State.
feel like every time I pick them, though, they lose.
And you know who is, I think, a sleeper here? And there are 3 seeds, so, you can't. Florida, Derek, Florida is the typical, 3 seed every year that ends up in the Final Four. You know what I mean? Florida.
They've made some runs.
Every year on Selection Sunday, I'm like, Florida's 26-5? I hadn't heard about them all year.
Well, Michigan State used to be that team.
Correct.
Until things kind of went dry for them for a little bit.
I'm going to predict right now, and I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, you won't even remember that I predicted it, but if I'm right, I will absolutely just go on and on about how I was right about this. Truthfully, I have nothing scientific to factor into this in any way, shape, or form. But I thought it was cool because this team went to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on Selection Sunday and soaked it all in and did laps around this, and then their coach and the school themselves sent a tweet about it, about how, and I thought, well, that's cool. They're soaking it in, they're embracing, they're already here. Woo, pig suey. Woo, pig suey. The Arkansas Razorbacks. That's my team that I'm predicting is going to make a deep run.
They're red hot for whatever it's worth. Because Arkansas was around where Indiana was in most of the projections like a month ago, and then they closed the season like this, whereas Indiana went like this.
But a lot of times if a team does that, then they hit a brick wall, right? But I like Eric Musselman. I mean, look.
The way that I'd say it, Jake, is that, this whole thing, you know how I feel about momentum, but it's a single elimination tournament that is generally based on matchups. So how well you're playing or how poorly you're playing,
fair.
There's no rhyme or reason to it.
They start with Colgate.
A lot of it is luck.
14-1 Colgate.
Yeah. The team that I really like is, and I mentioned them earlier in the show, is Oklahoma State. I think that the problem is that they are in the most brutal region to me by far. Illinois' region is the toughest one. It's also all orange teams. Did you notice that?
Somebody sent something out about that.
Yeah, Nick Yeoman, I think, did. And then I looked at it and I was like, wow, he's right. It's like Clemson, Oklahoma State, Illinois, or somebody else. Syracuse, yeah. Who really doesn't deserve to be in the field, but they're in because they're Syracuse, I guess. But Cade Cunningham is the #1 pick in the draft, so they have
good
a guy.
Player. Really good player.
And I like the way that they played. That Big 12 tournament was like a heavyweight fight. All those games were just back and forth haymakers. It was a lot of fun.
I'd like to get to our winners drink milk next. Do you want to do that?
I'd love to.
Why the huge
I'm so excited about my winner for this week.
Are you really?
Yes.
What if we have the same one?
Then I'll go first.
Okay.
Take it away from you.
You know the thing is, the winners drink milk. You could pick Colgate because milk excellent for your teeth, right?
I'm so glad that we don't. I do miss it. I'm not gonna lie, but
strengthens.
Sometimes when you're like this, like I'm really glad that we're not contractually obligated to be together 20 hours a week.
You know what was a big hit when we did the radio shows, when we give away the numbers, and that was something I came up with. That was just a one.
That's
day.
like the one thing that you provided to the show. Like every other idea that I had.
Kids loved it. We had meetings about it, and kids loved it. But we'd have a number, and people would call in for a number, and then I would give a factoid about each particular team. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were just blown away by my ability to just do that.
That was something that people liked, even though we got some callers, man, that just. I was like, do you watch sports? Like, why are you calling this show? How do you not get this?
What if I told you the team you got is called the Tar Heels and Michael Jordan went there? I got Drexel? Okay.
The Texans? No, dude, like.
All right, so your winners drink milk, American Dairy Association,
yes,
Indiana.
The rest of our features, and plenty more to get to, including Drew Brees calling it a career.
All right, sounds good.
It's Corey and Schultz. Stick around, ISC Sports Network.
Life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Talking about the NCAA Tournament because it is March. That means it will be May before we know it. And that means, of course, it is time, Derek, and we are thrilled to announce once again, although we announced it before, but I am absolutely thrilled that we are, again, going to be able to host the American Dairy Association of Indiana fastest rookie luncheon. And they have been really good to us. And, of course, that means time for our Winners Drink Milk Winner of the Week and our Milk Fun Facts.
Also, we're going to voice the Indy 500 commercial for the American Dairy Association. So you can say, along with Mark James,
James,
are...
That's with an N.
Yeah, Jaynes. What's wrong with you? Do you need to get your ears
James.
checked?
You said Mark James.
I said Mark James.
No, you said James. You said it. I'm telling you.
Disemboweled Mark James.
That time you got it right.
Like, do you need? I think your hearing's about to go.
Did you just?
You're 50-something.
Did you just say that you disemboweled Mark James?
No, I'm just saying. Like earlier in the show,
I got to work
you
with
called
him.
me out, and I think you need to get your ears checked, my man. Okay. I think you're having some problems over there. Like I clearly, if you need me to enunciate even more, I mean, I'm a very gifted enunciator, but I will if you require that.
Can you do some enunciation courses or classes?
I don't
that
need
Sally
any.
Struthers I think has a mail-in thing
I should
you
be
could
teaching enunciation
Rosetta
classes.
Stone.
I'm so good at it.
The Derek Schultz School.
Sorry, what I was going to say before I was
of enunciation
rudely interrupted was that along with Mark James,
thank you.
You can say that we are also voices of the Indianapolis 500 because we're voicing that commercial.
Okay.
When people hear our voices, they'll think of the greatest spectacle in racing. That's what I like to think.
I think there's some that already do.
All right, you ready for Milk Facts?
I am. I will
I
enjoy
usually
my
take the
chocolate
shake
milk as we do it. I look washed out up top. I need powder up there or something. I'm just saying.
No, I didn't. I said Mark James.
You
I know
said James.
he's been a friend of mine for years. Like I know what his last name is.
You definitely said James.
Let's see. 1 8-ounce serving of low-fat chocolate milk has as much calcium as 10 cups of raw spinach, as much potassium as a banana, as much vitamin A as 2 boiled eggs. It's a great workout recovery drink. Head to winnersdrinkmilk.com to find out more about the best post-exercise drink around. The Winners Drink Milk winner of the week is so easy for me because he is my Mickey Mantle, my sports hero, and the story of the conference tournament season, what Georgetown did, winning 4 games in 4 days. Not only that, but, you know, sometimes conference tournaments, the brackets blow up and you're just facing bad teams. They beat the 1 and the 2 seed, and they absolutely stuffed Creighton into a garbage disposal. I mean, they destroyed them in that game. I'm not even going to try to say disemboweled again because I don't want to be wrongly corrected. Patrick Ewing is my winner of the week. I'm thrilled for him. A basketball icon, obviously, but as a coach, things have been kind of rocky for him at Georgetown.
Have issues with his mask.
Well, that too. Things have been rocky as far as injuries and attrition, which has really plagued his years at Georgetown. And this year they were picked to finish last in the league, and instead they win the league tournament, which, you know, unlike the Big Ten, Jake, and the ACC is this way too, the league tournament is the league champion.
This is
like
what year
that is the prestige of it.
This is what year for Patrick Ewing?
I think it's year 4. I think he started in 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Was he on thin
17,
ice?
18, 18, 19, 19,
He was
20,
kind of on
21.
thin ice, wasn't he?
I don't think he was on I think fans were starting to grow impatient with him. I don't think he was going to get fired. Like, let's say Georgetown lost their first round game. I don't think he was going to get fired.
Who does Georgetown
they're in a
open with?
5-12 game. I don't know who they're playing. I got to look it up. Is it Colorado?
Colorado.
Okay.
Colorado's decent, right?
Yeah, they were the
Pac-12 runner-up.
Yeah, that's right.
Lost to Oregon State. They were going to be in the tournament regardless. They lost. Oregon State probably needed to win the Pac-10 tournament to get in. Colorado did not.
Mm-hmm.
They have 6 feet of snow right now in Colorado. Do you know
Yeah,
that?
and they've got a guard that really can light it up that, Indiana's going to have to watch out for in Chauncey Billups.
Chauncey Billups had 58 points against Indiana.
That's what
didn't he?
Another reason why we think about, the NCAA tournament being special, you always remember, I remember, even though they had fabulous all-star careers in the NBA, I think I remember more Mitch Richmond, Kansas State, and Chauncey Billups, Colorado, for those performances against Indiana and Purdue. Yeah.
Fair. My Winners Drink Milk winner of the week is not necessarily an athlete, but an entity and I guess a single person. But I remember sending, at the beginning of the college basketball season, Derek, I talked to somebody that said that there was discussion about the possibility of the Big Ten season over holiday break bubbling and playing their entire season in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil in a bubble. Obviously, that did not happen. But for the city of Indianapolis to have the wherewithal and the long ago, foresight to put together an NCAA tournament in Indianapolis with all of the teams here, which is unbelievable that everybody is coming here to our city. Ryan Vaughn and the Indiana Sports Corps, to me, has to be the Winners Drink Milk winner of the week, because that is a home run for the city of Indianapolis. I don't agree with, and I've been skeptical of the, $280 million to the local economy. Let's pump the brakes there a little bit. But for all of the teams that are coming, I don't know how many fans are going to be here. I was downtown for the Big Ten tournament, and there were far more fans downtown packing the bars and restaurants than I would have guessed. I don't think it's still to that number, but nonetheless, anything now you're getting is a bonus for the restaurants, the hospitality industry in downtown Indianapolis, and it's an ingenious way to try to make up a year's worth of lost revenue.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited for all those people. It's been a tough fight for them. By the way, we're taping this right now it's almost exactly noon on Monday, and Archie Miller just got fired 5 minutes ago. So that has been final. It's the only decision that Indiana could make. I mean, there was no other decision, buyout or not. You had to move on.
Indiana has an athletic director whose job, Derek, was to come up with money. His previous job was he was the head of the athletic fundraising, the athletic department's fundraising efforts. So coming up with the money for a buyout on Archie Miller, whether Indiana had somebody that privately donated that or now they have to make it up, I don't know. This was not a surprise. Archie Miller is a guy that was the hot coaching trend at the time that Indiana got him. I thought it was a home run hire at the time that Indiana went out and got him. I wish Indiana would have opened up for more interviews. Fred Glass did not do that. He simply went out and got the guy that was the hot name. They didn't call Chris Holtman or others. Now the question becomes, who does Indiana end up with? And I don't know that it's going to be, quote, Derek, a home run hire. I know there are a lot of people that think that Indiana has to hire within the Indiana family. That would put Dane Fife in the conversation. I don't know outside of that how many head coaches are there that you would say that's the guy they have to get. Steve Alford, I think we know what the ceiling is for Steve Alford. He's a good coach, and I loved Steve Alford growing up, and I still like Steve Alford as a guy. But I've always felt like Nevada, New Mexico, that's the level that Steve Alford, is. Steve Alford had a long time at Iowa, and he had good success at Iowa. Don't get me wrong. Brad Stevens, depending on what happens with the Boston Celtics, is probably, people are going to mention that if he's in thin ice in Boston. I don't know that he is. The thing that Indiana has the advantage of, Derek, right now is that the NCAA tournament and every coach in college basketball that is in the tournament is in the state of Indiana right now. So a team gets knocked out or gets upset, you're right there. You're right downtown. You can talk to them right there. So this worked out well for Indiana in that regard. I don't know. My gut tells me that Indiana is going to go with a hire that is not necessarily a blow you out of the water at the time. Wow, they got Jay Wright, or they lured away Brad Stevens, or they, went out and got Mark Few. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be either a long-standing, well-established assistant from a big-time program, or a Dane Fife or somebody like that's a younger guy that has if it's a younger guy, it's going to be a younger guy with Indiana connections, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have no idea what they're going to do, but from the people that I've talked to, it sure feels like, unlike 4 years ago, it really feels like this time around there's going to be a big push for it to be somebody that has ties to the program. Now, I don't necessarily mean direct ties, like obviously Dane Fife would have direct ties to the program, but somebody that has some sort of link to Indiana basketball, even if that means Chris Beard, which technically is linked tonight, which of course is linked to Indiana basketball.
Chris Beard will be in the conversation.
That's kind of what I've been gathering from the people. I'm not going to make myself sound like I'm some insider reporter, but from the people that are connected to the program that I've talked to, or just in general that I think will be somewhat involved in this process, I feel like there's a much more of a push for it to be an Indiana guy than 4 years ago, where there was a lot of, there were some players that really wanted. There were some players that really wanted Alford, but Fred Glass, from what I heard, never even considered him.
I believe that's correct. But here's the thing: if it's going to be an Indiana guy, if you say we've got to get a guy that's an Indiana guy, here are your choices.
I mean, we kind of talked about it last week. There aren't many.
Dane Fife.
Yeah.
If you're going Michael Lewis, who's an assistant now at UCLA, right?
And has been a high-level assistant for years now.
He was
Nebraska,
at Nebraska,
Butler,
right.
I think, at one point.
The guy at UCSB, who was a manager at Indiana.
we don't even know. The guy,
That's right.
I don't know what his name is either. I just heard he was an Indiana graduate.
Lawrence Frank, I don't even know where he is now.
Wasn't he director of basketball ops somewhere?
That may be.
Okay.
He was
I'll
head coach in the NBA with the New Jersey Nets, notably. Calbert Chaney, assistant for the Pacers. Then you have Mike Woodson and Randy Whitman, okay?
Who have been NBA guys.
Right.
And I'm not sure. Has Whitman coached anywhere in the last couple
Smart
years?
Was an NBA coach. Alford, as you mentioned.
Yeah, Lawrence is the president of basketball ops for the Clippers in the NBA.
Yeah, why would you leave that
He
job
was an
there?
assistant for the Clippers in 2016. That's the last time he's coached. But he has 25 years of coaching experience.
Right. Outside of that, Chris Beard and Scott Drew. Those are two names that will come up, and I think will get a lot of attention. Chris Beard, I think, would be a home run hire, and I think that there will be a movement within Indiana to take a look at him, partially because he does have connections to Bob Knight, so you're kind of bridging that gap. But I've also heard that there is some hesitation about Chris Beard's recruiting principles and whether or not that would be something Indiana wants to dive into. And I definitely think that's a hesitation with Scott Drew. I'm not saying those guys are guilty of anything. I'm saying that perception is there. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. Beard is one of the few guys who you could say is still somewhat hamstrung by the program and location, because Lubbock it's just, from what I hear, it's difficult to get players, even though obviously he's done pretty well getting some players down there. But there are a lot of places, like especially Jay Wright in Villanova, that'd be a demotion for him. Mark Few in Gonzaga, that would be a demotion. Gonzaga is a supernova program right now. Like, they're several tiers above where Indiana is. And Villanova, the same thing.
And then, people may mention Tony Bennett, but they tried that once.
And again, Virginia
and he turned it down.
is a well-oiled machine.
He's a national title.
And an unbelievable basketball conference and an unbelievable institution that has a proud history. Virginia had good teams before Tony Bennett was there.
If I'm not mistaken, Georgia just had a change in their administration, and Tom Crean wants out. I shouldn't say wants out, but there's rumor that he may.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know if he wants out. I mean, that's the wrong way of saying it, but
they've been okay. I mean,
he's only been there 2 years?
This is his third year, right? Maybe I'm wrong.
Is that right?
This is his second year. No, it's his
third year.
Yeah.
Okay. They struggled this year, right?
My dad just texted me. They're saying on the news stripe that Indiana fired Archie Miller. Yeah, they did that. Thank you. He's great.
Your dad's trying to help out, Derek.
He's the best. Love my dad.
I would imagine my phone probably the battery.
We have more
blew up a
features to
little
get
bit
to. Brees, Karis Levert makes his Pacers debut. I want to talk about that, even though they're playing tonight. So some of this I don't want it to be too time sensitive. And plenty more to get to. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network. Stick around.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
You can't get enough of them.
You can't get enough of us. Good one, J-Man.
This is the worst scandal. This might
This
even
is
be
worse than steroid. Not so fast.
Are you going to watch the XFL?
I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
You want to go through and pick some games?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Oh my God!
We are ripping fast today.
And how hard can it be, right?
These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
Back again, it's Query and Schultz here on the ISC Sports Network. I don't know why I say back again. Where else are we going to go? You don't have a job, and I work here. So,
I've actually been sitting here since last Monday.
of course we're here. Yeah, we have a little cot set up out back.
It's
to
great.
help Jake save on rent. We've got a couple more features to get to, Jake. But before we do that, I wanted to touch on these two things. I'm sorry. We've been so tournament dominated. You know, this was kind of one of those days where we had like 7 topic A's. Like most shows, we'd probably lead with the Drew Brees news or lead with the Karis Levert return, but those kind of got lost in the shuffle. Let's start with Brees. I'm surprised that it took 2 months for him to go final with this. Maybe he was wrestling with the decision. I thought it was obvious at the end of last season that he was cooked and that he would walk away. But now official that Drew Brees is done after 20 seasons. And, Jake, what a remarkable career. Even the homeriest of Homer Purdue fans, I don't think could have ever imagined that Drew Brees would be the pro that he ended up becoming.
Great player. Great player. And not only a great player, but a guy that, you know, his passing accuracy as good as any that you'll ever see in the history of the league, but seemed to be a guy also that his teammates wanted to play for. Play for is wrong. It's not like he's the coach, but play with. You know what I mean? Like, I think he elevated the play of other people. I remember when I was working at Channel 6, you know, like in the lowest of low rungs of the ladder, and they sent me up to Purdue one day and said, hey, go get some sound. That's TV vernacular for go get an interview.
Yep.
With their quarterback. They got this freshman quarterback that's playing really well. He might have been a sophomore or whatever it was. And I just remember them saying, try to get the photographer to go on the other side because he has this thing, which was
he had the
mole.
birthmark, yeah.
But it had hair in it at that time. Looked like your thing there. He eventually got that removed, but that was like all I knew. I'm like, who's this guy? And they're like, well, he looks like he's pretty good. His name's Drew Brees. Okay. Came from Texas. And Joe Tiller and Drew Brees was a match made in heaven from the get-go. And, you know, basketball on grass. And then, of course, you know what happens. He goes to the Chargers. And then, you know, how things could be different in the fact that that's who Nick Saban wanted in Miami with the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And the Dolphins team doctor said no way with that rotator cuff, and instead they got Dante Culpepper, and he goes to New Orleans and gold and black
have
again.
Never been the same. Yeah, Dolphins haven't done anything.
How could things have been different if Drew Brees stays in Miami with Nick Saban?
Well, the Saints aren't in New Orleans anymore.
Correct.
They probably end up being in San Antonio or wherever they were going to head.
And Clemson and Ohio State are playing in the national championship game every year for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it really is wild to think about those little changes.
You're
like
right. The Saints
Dolphins,
are in San Antonio.
Saints
Correct.
Thing. But, you know, what stood out to me about Brees is not only his accuracy, but I think he kind of built the reputation for being a late-game guy as well. You know what I mean? And just kind of a winner and all of that. I mean, any of these guys were winners. You know, Manning, Brady, Brees, Elway, Favre, you know what I mean? All those guys, you know, Montana, and any of the all-time great quarterbacks were guys that were winners. But a guy that deeply, deeply loves Purdue. I don't know if there's anybody that loves Purdue more than Drew Brees loves Purdue.
Tell you.
And that's what has always enamored me about him because, you know, like somebody like Glenn Robinson, no offense to him, but, you know, he's never return that love, kind of like what Brees has returned.
I'll tell you one cool thing about Drew Brees, and I'm probably going to get the people wrong here, so I apologize for that. But I believe this was the Arc of Indiana, which is in partnership with the Erskine Green Institute, which Carl Erskine and Steve Green, our friend, the dentist, former Indiana basketball player, those two men started an institute under the Arc of Indiana, which is for people with disabilities to help facilitate to get them into the workplace. I was recently doing a thing for them, a fundraiser that they had that was New Orleans Mardi Gras themed, and they got Drew Brees to do a video for it, which he did, which was very cool. That came about because one of the people, I believe on their board, is from the Lafayette area, and when Drew Brees was at Purdue, their son, who was like 8, sent a letter to Purdue asking Drew Brees to come over to their house and have dinner to talk football. And the mom said, well, honey, that's really nice, but he's very busy.
Yeah, come on. And he went over there. Yeah.
Knocks on the door. Hey, I'm Drew Brees. I got invited over here for dinner. And
wow.
Sat and had dinner with him. And has helped out with the Arc of Indiana ever since. Pretty good dude.
And I think now that his career is over, you could admit a fatal mistake that you made for all of Indiana in representing us with your Heisman vote for that year. For those that don't know.
That is correct.
Jake.
The one year I had a Heisman vote.
Former IU student Jake cast his ballot for LaDainian Tomlinson.
I did.
Instead of Drew Brees.
And neither one of them won it.
No.
Chris Wanke, right?
That was Wanke. 2000, yeah. Who was like 85 years old or whatever, like a little bit of an advantage, right?
His hairline looked like yours before you started putting the gel on it.
Jake, if I admitted to everybody on the air all the things that I knew that you've done to cheat your aging process, I could air all of that laundry if you want me to.
I'm all ears,
okay,
although apparently they don't
saying.
work as well as they used to. Right?
I told you that in confidence.
Okay.
It has worked for me, though. It's nice. It's filled out a little bit more.
By the way, it's time for our Love That Play, and I think it's going to segue into another topic as well. Love That Play brought to you by the good folks at Love Heating and Air Conditioning. Love Heating and Air Conditioning, folks, has been around for over 100 years now. And how do you last that long in a city? It's very simple. You've got great product. You've got knowledge of that product. You've got great customer service, and you're just all around good people. 4 family generations deep. Love-HVAC.com is their website. That's love-HVAC.com. 317-353-2141. 317-353-2141. Derek, I'm going to give my Love That Play to, even though I believe he was 5 of 14 from the floor, the play of Karis Levert in Indiana, the Pacers. Very impressive win in Phoenix. It opened up, I think, for a lot of different people, and he was able to, look, you got to look at Karis Levert, and you're thinking, well, he doesn't even know necessarily, the guys on the floor, their tendencies and what they do. But I thought he came in, he brought energy to the Pacers. To be honest with you, it allowed their rotation to change a little bit. Edmund Sumner gives them pretty good minutes and good energy as well, and you can facilitate that a little bit. Aaron Holiday probably is going to see some minutes diminish here, among others. But just to have Karis Levert on the floor to come back after the kidney situation and the cancer and everything else, a triumphant return, and that is my Love That Play. Just the fact that he was in fact playing.
Yeah, he's a really good player. Like I am very confident that Karis Levert is going to be a great addition for the Pacers. I think he could at the very least give you where Oladipo has been post-injury. I don't know if his ceiling is as high, but he's still a little bit younger. And just a gifted all-around player and a good dude. And so I'm excited about him. I'm still not going to overreact to one game in Phoenix, even though it's an impressive victory. And they've got a tough one tonight. We're taping this right now on Monday against Denver. They're really in just a hell week because they've got Denver, and then they've got a home-and-home against Miami, and then they got to go at Milwaukee. This is going to be a really difficult stretch for the Pacers, but they've got to kind of right the ship here at 17-20 if they're going to make a push for the playoffs here in the second half. And I think Levert is the guy that's going to help them do that.
Okay, who do you have for your Love That Play?
I actually mentioned it earlier in the show, but Notre Dame's buzzer beater for Trey Wentz I thought was a great play. And, kind of a highlight, one last highlight of what was a difficult season for Notre Dame. And it'll be interesting to see. I don't think that they're going to fire Mike Bray, but I do think that this is the first time that –
Why would you?
Well – it's kind of one of those things where you really thought the 2015 and 2016 teams were so good, and 2015 team should have been in the Final Four. They should have beaten Kentucky. That was the
You're
team
right.
that should have beaten
Man,
Kentucky.
they had them on the ropes
They
that whole
outplayed
game.
them that game.
They did.
And they, obviously didn't. And you thought, okay, Notre Dame has arrived. They've broken through. Here it is. And then just after that, it just kind of went like this. They lost Grant and Connaughton and some of the players from those teams, and they've never really recovered. And Bray's been there so long and has been so good that I don't think anybody questions that the guy can coach. But I think the feeling is, okay, has it gotten stale? Do we need a new voice? And I don't think that that's going to happen here. But, Notre Dame had a forgettable season. They were 7-11 in the ACC. But that was a nice moment for them to start the ACC tournament before they got beaten by, I think, 128 points to North Carolina.
Okay,
That's
I think
it was a 128-point margin in that game,
okay,
if I'm not mistaken.
That's a big margin. Bite or Bull Schultz next? Because I'm calling Bull Schultz on that margin.
No, we'll do Bite or Bull Bleep
All right.
and wrap it up next.
All right.
There's something that I just saw over your shoulder that I'm not really happy with. It's Query and Schultz.
Hell yes.
IC Sports Network.
He's got WGU and the whole thing.
Oh, God.
Yes, this is beautiful.
Did you pick all birds?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? That's awesome.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
You can't get enough of them.
You can't get enough of us. Good one, J-Man.
This is the worst scandal. This might
This
even
is
be
worse than steroid. Not so fast.
Are you going to watch the XFL?
I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
You want to go through and pick some games?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Oh my God!
We are ripping fast today.
And how hard can it be, right?
These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
Welcome back to Query and Schultz. It is NCAA Tournament prediction time. That's the episode, and here we have.
I'm not doing the touching.
Once again
I'm
from
not gonna-
WGU
we'll
Indiana.
let Sage be in here.
We have Sage.
I'm not doing the touching.
Well, Sage is a huge part of the program, Derek.
I do
WGU
not-
Indiana, and of course,
want to be brushed by his
Indiana's
feathers. I
largest
don't wanna be
online
touched by his
accredited
talons.
university.
I don't
And
like being touched.
Sage was nice enough, were you not, Sage, to bring his bracket, right? Sage has in his tournament, Derek, in his bracket, he's got deep runs for Eastern Washington, Oregon, that's the Ducks,
Great.
the Iowa
Ducks are
Hawkeyes,
very aggressive, by the way. Okay.
St. Bonaventure,
Thank you,
which are the
Sage.
Bonnies,
Thank
but
you.
he says it sounds like a bird, so he's got him far.
Yep.
Winthrop, North Texas, and Morehead State. He has all birds in the Final Four, simply birds, birds. And then he says, what does WGU Indiana have in common with IU? Aside from the fact that they are fabulous universities within the state of Indiana, neither have a basketball team in the tournament, right? All birds.
Maybe we could change that someday.
All birds
Okay,
from the
great.
very
Thank you.
Sage.
I'm very thankful for our partnership with WGU Indiana.
You know, I don't know if you know, but owls have their heads can turn 360 degrees.
I
Did
just
you know
wish that I didn't have to put up with this now multiple times in our studio.
Look,
having
he's-
Sage out here.
he can
No,
watch
please-
you at all
please don't do
times,
that. Yeah, please
right?
don't flip the head around.
That's the beauty of it. Look at that. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Owls are
I'm not
wise.
going to make
Derek.
eye contact with them.
Owls also nocturnal. So obviously when it comes time to, just like if you want to finish or maybe even start a college degree and you want to do it on your own schedule, perhaps late at night, you can do so online, WGU Indiana.
That's right.
WGU.
It's a great place. Okay.
.edu/Indiana.
That's good, Sage. You got in enough touching there. Please don't. This microphone's very expensive. Don't get your talons on there.
Time for some Bite or Bull Schultz, by the way, brought to you by the Shop Indy, 920 Broderpool Avenue, or as well. Thank you, Sage. We're going to Look for all the birds, right?
Sage just shuffle out of here. Yeah.
What's wrong with that? He's feathery. He's like Victor Oladipo. The shop, 920 Broadwell Avenue or in Clay Terrace, or, of course, theshopindy.com, where they have all the fine T-shirts of retro Indianapolis, whether it be sports, whether it be restaurants, whether it be pop culture, you name it, they've got it all at the shop Indianapolis. All right, Derek, go ahead with your first one.
Statement 1, Indianapolis should host the NCAA Tournament every year. Buy it or bold bleep?
I have to say buy it just for the sake of Indianapolis. But I do love, part of the mystique and the magic of the NCAA tournament is all the different venues and the different cities.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I love Indy, but, and this is cool, don't get me wrong, we usually have games here, either the first 2 rounds or a regional final or something, Final Four. Obviously, we're in the rotation every 5 or 6 years. I like the fact that they go other places, especially for some of these other games. I don't need every game to be at Assembly Hall or Hinkle or whatever. I love those places. Don't get me wrong, deeply. Mackey. This is a fun, quirky thing for one time. There's zero chance, by the way, that the NCAA would ever consider having it all in one site because they're in the business of making money.
Derek, I would not be surprised. I don't think it'll happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if this was partially a test run to see if for, like, say, a 2 or 3 year window that they do this to make up revenue that was lost. They got about 70% of their insurance payment. The money that they would make from the NCAA tournament a year ago by not having it, they recouped about 70% of that, I'm told, through insurance policies. But still, you've got money you got to make up. And while the universities themselves are paying for the travel and that sort of thing, the NCAA, in terms of, the leasing of facilities and the different markets and everything else, wouldn't surprise me if they do 1 or 2 more years, experiment with it. But, yeah, not long term.
Geez, I just feel terrible for the NCAA that they have to make up some money that they might have actually taken a loss instead of making $1 billion.
Right.
So that's
the TV contract certainly
that
helps.
is just absolutely heartbreaking for me. Statement 2: the Pacers will finish the season with a winning record. Buy it or bold bleep? They're 17-20 right now, and when they come back from this week, they'll probably be around the same.
Winning record? Really I think so, because I think they've managed to tread water, and now Karis, Levert, and then if you get, I don't know when T.J. Warren's going to be back, but it gives them some additional scores. I'll say they make it up and they finish around 500.
I'm confident that they finish with a winning record. I think at this point you're going to have a winning record to be in the playoffs in the East, because a lot of those teams, at least right now, the 6, 7, and 8, I think are all hovering around 500, but they're all on the right side of the ledger, like the Knicks and trying to think of who else is there, but the Pacers are right behind them right now as the 9 seed. So I don't know. I haven't, Jake, I haven't been very optimistic about this year's Pacers, but with Levert coming back and now finally you fill that absence post-Oladipo trade, I think they're ultimately going to be good enough to at least get into the 8-team field in the Eastern Conference. Statement 3, buy it or bold bleep? Daylight saving time is actually a good thing.
Yeah, I got no problem. I mean, look, I always liked when I was a kid growing up that Indiana never changed. I thought it was fun. It made us unique. But I like when it's light out at 9:45 at night.
Is that why people complain about it? Because they were used to never turning their clocks at all?
I don't know why. Like, who cares?
Right? I really want my hour back because it nuked my whole Sunday yesterday. I was just like, gah, all day. It was
sleep
awful.
An extra hour.
Well, I created along with my wife, co-created a human being that's 4 years old. So, my sleep schedule and, why not just take a nap? Can't really do that. I don't have that.
When he wakes up, you just say,
time in my
you're
life.
Confused.
But
he didn't know the difference. You just tell him, you're confused. You woke up an hour early.
I went to bed at 10:30, which is actually my body time 9:30 last night. And that's not depressing at all. After tuning into the Grammys for a little bit, when I was like, what is this? Who are these people?
Did you notice in the Grammys they gave away no awards?
Yeah.
It was just live performance.
I feel terrible, Jake, but some of these performers like that are like household or supposed to be household names. Like I have no idea who they are.
How familiar were you with Harry Styles?
He was one of the wait, no, he's not one of the Jonas Brothers because his last name's not Jonas. Yes, that's right. Yes. So I did know that. I did know that he was in one of those bands.
Yeah. He's got 36 million Twitter followers.
Yeah, he was like the Justin Timberlake of One Direction.
Correct.
Clearly the shining star of that group, right? Yeah.
Talented guy.
Yeah. But Tracy Forner had mentioned like the Haim band or something, the Haim, and I was like, Corey Haim? You know what I mean? Like, that's how out of touch I am.
Corey Haim, Derek, is no longer with us.
Oh, is he gone? Corey Haim?
Yeah, he's I don't mean to laugh at that.
Was he the one from Goonies?
No, that's Corey Feldman.
Well, there were two Corys.
That's correct.
Sorry, I thought Corey Haim was the Goonies guy.
No, that's Corey Feldman.
Okay.
Corey Feldman also Stand By Me.
Yes. So that's not Corey Haim.
Corey Haim was maybe Adventures in Babysitting. I could be wrong in that.
I don't know that one.
Then there's Corey Hart, musician. So 3 Corys. if you
Yeah,
wanna go there.
Barracuda.
No, that's the band Hart. No,
by Corey Hart.
No,
The last name is
no.
It's
Hart,
like Jake. It's like
no.
Van Halen.
Hart is a female band that was originally from Seattle and then moved to Los Angeles. The gal from Hart is in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. She plays the girl that pulls up to the stoplight next to Brad Hamilton when he's delivering to the IBM guys. Throws the fish out because he's still wearing Captain Hook's fish and chips outfit and he gets embarrassed. That's Hart. Corey Hart is Sunglasses. I wear my sunglasses. Boy in the Box was the album.
Okay, sorry. I guess I
hits
got
there.
that wrong.
He's
Yeah.
Canadian.
Like the Never Give You Up guy.
What?
Never gonna give you
That's
up.
Ricky. No, that's Rick
He's
Astley.
Canadian.
No, I think he's British.
No, he's pretty
I mean,
sure
it's
he's
kind
Canadian.
of the same, but
Yeah, that's not kind of the same.
did you say you're pretty sure he's gay?
No, I said Canadian.
I think you said he's
Yeah,
gay.
No,
What-
you
what
need
is-
to get your ears checked. Like I don't know. I mean, he might be, and that's fine.
There's
I
nothing
have
wrong
no,
with that.
yeah,
I agree,
no
but-
problem with that at all. But I'm
Okay.
just like seriously, I'm worried about you.
Okay.
Because you've had a lot of problems on this show today, hearing me, and you're almost 55, so I'm a little bit concerned about you.
Listen, let me tell you something. I'm just happy the Heart's going, Derek. I don't care about the
One
hearing.
last plug for Indy Card Exchange. We're going to be there on Friday.
Okay.
Special edition live show, so that'll be in addition to all of our usual Query and Schultz shows. 96th Street, come on by, buy some cards. Heck, bring some cards if you want to. Andy will go through them. He's far more of an expert on it than either you or I are, but
Right.
I'm looking forward on just kind of going down memory lane with that. And I had been kind of considering getting back into the hobby
is fun.
again at
They're
some
great.
point. Like, I'm not going to immerse myself in it, but just kind of do it on the side because it was so I loved card collecting. It was such a fun time in my life.
Definitely. I used to go to card shows all the time. Now you don't have to go to card shows. You don't have to go to card shows. They're right there for you every day of the week.
Also, it's not going to change, I don't think, next week. Will still be Tuesday, but as the NCAA tournament games push into Tuesday night, just to keep the show up to date, I believe we're going to do Wednesday editions of Query and Schultz, or one Wednesday edition on the final week of the month. So the 31st, I believe, is going to be technically a Wednesday show just to make sure that it's not dated. So just some housekeeping to finish up the show for today. Yep.
I mean, we don't want anything here to be dated, right?
You've been a real jerk today.
You've been
I don't
wearing
know.
the same sweatshirt for 7 years. I don't want anything to be dated.
This is the second episode that I've worn this sweatshirt, but it's like the worst weather ever. It's 36 and rain, which is the worst forecast possible.
Right.
And it's just a really comfy sweater, so I wanted to wear it.
All right. So Friday, right?
Friday,
Sounds
Indy
good.
Card Exchange, and then, of course, our normal show on Monday. But if you can't make it on Friday, streaming live, ISCSportsNetwork.com, all the socials, and on Comcast. Xfinity
My
Channel
final
81.
four, by the way, Derek, not that you care, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Let's get it
I
official on
haven't
record.
even-
I'm going with literally like I'm just going through it. Gonzaga, I do like Gonzaga. It's hard to go against them. I'm going to take – I hate going like chalk, right? Alabama, are you sold on Alabama?
No, I told you that I've watched them once, and it was the other day.
Florida
All season.
State. I'm going to take Gonzaga, Florida State, Arkansas, and Illinois.
Okay, give me that real quick because I got to eyeball it. Gonzaga, I know they're my champ, and they're going to
Gonzaga
walk.
and Illinois.
They're going
in
to walk into
title
the
game.
Final Four. I'm going to take.
Gonzaga's good.
There was somebody that jumped out to me in Michigan's region that I wanted to take, and now I don't
State?
know who it is.
Texas,
I don't know who I'm picking out of there.
Iowa.
You know what? I'll just take Michigan by default.
Okay.
I'm going to take Oklahoma State to come out of the Midwest and Illinois region because I think it's really, really difficult. And I was heavily considering Ohio State. I also briefly considered Purdue as well, but I think I'm going to also take Arkansas, closing the season strongly as they did.
Okay. Thanks
That's
for
my
hopping
Final
on my
Four
bandwagon
as
there.
well. And I had a perfect Final Four once in 2004. Oklahoma State, Georgia Tech, UConn, and Duke.
Okay.
Was in the 99th percentile of the Yahoo Bracket Challenge.
Okay.
You're welcome.
That's because the others on Yahoo were all 94 and had Oklahoma A&M and Holy Cross in their Final Four.
We'll see you on Friday, Indy Card Exchange on Query and Schultz.
Where's CCNY? Are they in it this
ISC
year? I
Sports
like
Network.
them.
You were awful today. You really were.
All right.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.